There's a little canticle, the subject of which is how I feel about things. You know, I left New York in an Oldsmobile. I made it to Virginia, frozen to the wheel. I hit Chattanooga. It started to snow. Montgomery, Alabama was freezing cold. I had that change. I had my foot on the gas, my hand on the wheel. I never stopped rolling till I got to Mobile. I stopped in New Orleans. I headed back home. It was my Houston, San Antonio. Baby, I had to change. But it was time for a change. I went to a dance up on the north side of town. All these teenagers jumping straight up and down. I told the little woman with her hair dyed green, baby, I'm just a fool about shaking that thing. Let's change. Just got back from New York City, that's where they write the news. Back home in Texas, we just jamming the blues. Sooner or later we'll all be doing a mashed potato. The slip, slop, flop, bop, and the fly. Honey, let's change. I think it's time for a change. I finally got back home before repairs full. I found where my baby had left a note on the door. She said, look here, Stevie, where you been so long? I peeked through these window, man, I found out she had gone. She made a change. She had took the diamond ring. She took the car. She took that sugar, left me holding this candy bar. You know, she took the groceries all off of the shelf. She took $1,000 and she turned around and left me without change. It's time for a change. You know, a great Greek philosopher of antiquity, his name was Hippopotamus, I think. He once said something that really stuck with me. He said that the only thing inevitable in the human condition is change. And I agree with what he said, but I wish that Hippo was here right now so that I could ask him a question which has been nagging at my conscious, my subconscious, and my superconscious ever since I first read that pronouncement riding on a train from London to Newcastle in a book about Western philosophy that I had bought at an open-air book market in summer. If Hippo was here right now, I'd go, yo, Hippo, put me in hell. If change is inevitable in the human condition, like you said, and I'm so hip to that, how come every time it happens, your faithful servant, Steve James, is not ready? Like this particular time that I'm talking about, there I was, standing in my kitchen at 4:30. I had my bare feet on the yellow pine floor, and I reached out my trembling hand, and I grabbed a hold of the refrigerator door, and I opened the refrigerator, hoping that I would find something to eat, something that would help me sleep. Before I started making my 4-day creep, without fail it lands mice in jail. Very bad thing, you understand. There was nothing in my refrigerator except the stuff that you usually find in the refrigerator of a guitar player. On the bottom shelf, fossilized vegetable matter that could only be identified by archaeologists. Looking up on the second shelf, there was that jar of Goulden spicy brown mustard that I had bought in 1973 before they changed the label from the beautiful Victorian-era serif script that they used to have to the boring silver block letters that graces the logo of that particular august product now. I saved that original jar for sentimental reasons, and now I'm afraid to touch it because 1973 was a long time ago. Going up another shelf, you can see a 32-ounce size plastic cup with a 4-color separation picture of Moby the gorilla on it. It says souvenir of the San Antonio Zoo. Standing in that cup is a bunch of celery that I bought about 15 years ago when I thought I might be become a vegetarian. I went on an extended tour of Georgia, North and South Carolina, where pork is considered a spice. And when I came back, I had abandoned the idea of becoming a vegetarian. It was an extended tour of mine. So by the time I got back home and opened my refrigerator, the celery had disincorporated on a cellular level and reincorporated on a pre-molecular level as a sentient being with an intelligence of its own. And as I stood there that night in my pain and my trembling, broken-hearted misery, I was sure that I heard the celery talk to me, and it said, "Look in the back, Steve James, if you want something to help you sleep, look way in the back of the refrigerator." And so I looked in the back of the refrigerator, just like the celery told me, and I found something back there to help me go to sleep. It was a toolkit. Now when I say toolkit, I mean, I want to put you Canadians hip. I mean it in the South Texas vernacular sense. So when I say toolkit, I am not referring to a hammer, nor a gimlet, nor a screwdriver, neither. When I say toolkit, I'm talking about a 6-pack of beer and a half a pint of vodka. In no time, I was asleep. And when I sleep, as you may have gathered, I breathe. And when I breathe, I wake from my dream. I woke from my dream and I saw that the Oldsmobile parked in my driveway had turned into a 1963 cranberry and white Ford Fairlane 500 with a small V8 engine. That made me feel good. So I got outside and I got inside and I stepped on the starter. I started my Ford. I started driving it around and around the block. I rolled down the window and let the early zephyrs of spring play across my craggy features. I turned on the AM radio as loud as it would go. And there was Bill Allen, the mighty horseman, and he was winding up his midnight to dawn, rhythm and blues, soiree on WLAC, the mighty blaster out of Nashville, Tennessee. And as self-same zephyrs of spring played across self-same features, I whispered aloud as though to myself, and as though to the cosmos in general, I said, "Horseman, what are you doing on the air? You've been dead for 15 years. A voice came over the radio and said, "Shut up, boy," and gave these rhythm and blues. He was putting them down, man. Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and Slim Harpo and Lazy Lester and Chicken Chuck Carbo and the Spiders from New Orleans, Louisiana. They was playing one of my favorite songs, the one that goes like this. Well, it's the real thing that makes my ding-a-ling-ring. Everybody sing it, children. Well, it's the single thing that makes my ding-a-ling-ring. It's the real thing that makes my ding-a-ling-ring. It's the real thing that makes my ding-a-ling-ring. At that point, my ding-a-ling was ringing louder than a cathedral bell in Belgium on a Sunday morning, and that kind of excitement only causes my metabolism to rise, which makes me hungry. So I drove my 1963 cranberry and white Ford Fairlane 500, you know the kind I'm talking about, the kind with a small V8 engine, down to the corner where the golden arches used to stand. It disappeared. It was though they crumbled to the ground and been blown away on the celestial winds of time. Standing in their place was a tiny plywood and tar paper shack with a sign painted on the side in house paint that said, "If you like cooked meat, that's your business. But if you love good barbecue, that's Bob's business. Welcome to the barbecue bar." So I parked my 1963 cranberry and white Ford Fairlane 500. Now y'all got a pretty good idea about the kind I'm talking about, the kind with the small V8 in the dirt parking lot outside that shack, and in that dirt parking lot was a rollaway sign. You know the kind of rollaway sign I'm talking about? Big old sign with wheels on the bottom. It's got a bumper hitch on it. And up on top, a big orange arrow festooned with multicolored lights that seem to be going around and around and around and around. But actually, if you look very closely, they're just going on and off. It's a metaphor I don't have time to deal with tonight here. My first show ever in Vancouver. Let it suffice to say that when I get back to our hometown of Austin, Texas, the intellectual capital of the Lone Star State, oxymoron though that may seem to be, I am going to rent one of those signs and set it up in the backyard of my Chi-Chi duplex apartment way down in South Austin over by Columbia Creek. And I'm going to make a different message on it every day to challenge the considerable intellectual all my neighbors up and down the street. Oh, I'm afraid to rent the sign. What would strike fear into the heart of Steve James, you might ask? You know, Austin is an intellectual community, all right, but it's surrounded by satellite communities like Niederwald and Pflugerville, which are not. And I'm afraid that if I rented the sign, that psychopathic, overstimulated juvenile delinquents would come in the dead of the night. And they would steal the letters off of my rollaway sign. Why would they do that? So that they could make dirty words on the rollaway sign outside the Baptist church in the Pissantable communities where they grind away their meaningless teenage existence. I'm going to rent the sign anyway. As soon as I get home next September, I'm going to rent the sign. Set it up in my front yard. Because I realize that if you've been in enough dirt parking lots, outside of enough plywood and tar paper shacks, in enough 1963 Cranberry and White Ford Fairlane 505 with a small V8 engine, you know the exact kind I'm talking about. You can read those signs, whether they got all the letters on them or not. This particular sign said, "Welcome home, Step Jam." We all just wait. You know, I left New York City in an Oldsmobile. I made it to Virginia and rose into wheel. I hit Chattanooga when it started to snow. Montgomery, Alabama was freezing cold. I had a shame. I had my foot on the gasoline and my hands wrapped around the steering wheel. I never stopped rolling till I got back to Mobile, Alabama. That's a lovely place. Stopped in New Orleans and I headed back home. It was Beaumont and Houston and Sealy and Columbus and Schulenburg and Flatonia, La Grange and Smithville and Bastrop, Del Valley. And from there you can see the lights of the airport and you know you're getting back to our hometown of Austin, Texas. And when we get back there, they're going to say, "Steve, Mark, Silas, where y'all been?" And we're going to say, "We was up in Vancouver, Canada." And they're going to say, "Up there in British Columbia." What's going on up there? All the people in Austin are going to say, with their questioning mind. And I'm going to say, "Look, baby, don't let it rot at your bonnet. Because they know like I know, and you know, they know, I know. You know, I know, they know, you know, I know that it's time for you." We have to make a change right now. It's been our distinct pleasure to play and sing for you tonight. But we have to go now. I have to say goodbye. I have to say goodbye. And I have to say goodnight. And I have to say so long. And I have to go far away if I don't want to. Seems like I just got here. Nice place y'all got. Thanks for coming tonight. Yeah, baby. I can't do it. I can't say goodbye. I can't say goodbye. So as usual, I'm going to fob the task off on my constant companion, Brownie, over here. Baby, would you tell the people good night in guitar language? Just tell the people good night and God bless and Godspeed.